Have you ever wondered why some women find it so effortlessly easy to receive princess treatment from men without even asking for it? Meanwhile, for you, you have to beg, scratch, and claw just to get the bare minimum from men. Well, what if I told you you can actually receive princess treatment from men without begging for it as long as you practice this one strategy, pre-selection. And on today's show, I'm gonna explain to you exactly how pre-selection works and how it will take you from begging for men to give you princess treatment to sitting back, relaxing, and just receiving. The concept of princess treatment is one that a lot of people mistake. See, when you scroll through your TikTok or you scroll through your Instagram and you see a girl receiving princess treatment from a man, let's say for the sake of example, she's posting a video with rose petals everywhere. She's got a huge bouquet in her hand as well. Her man got her a watch. Her man got her a designer bag. All you see is those orange is it Louis Vuitton? Is Louis Vuitton orange or is it Hermes? No, Hermes is orange. She's got a bunch of designer bags. She's Gucci down, Louis down, red bottoms, bloody heels. She's got everything you want. And she's showing it off, and it almost feels like a diss to you because she's like basically showing you how she's so much better than you as a woman that she can inspire a man to treat her like this. You see that treatment, and then you look at your man beside you and you ask yourself a very painful question. Why the hell does my useless waste of space of a man not treat me the way that that man treats his woman? This is where things go wrong. Because princess treatment as a concept, you feel like princess treatment can be applied to any one of these men, right? So you ask yourself, hey, why don't you give me princess treatment the same way I see this other man giving princess treatment to his woman on Instagram? I want some of that. I want you to change how you've been treating me because how you treat me is like trash. I don't like the way you treat me. And I want you to treat me the way I see this guy treating his woman on Instagram, okay? This is a problem though. Princess treatment as a concept is not a thing that can apply, a thing that can apply to each and every man, okay? I want to change your way of thinking as it relates to princess treatment. And I want to kind of restructure how you imagine princess treatment works. All men are not capable of giving princess treatment. Princess treatment, rather, is a character trait that individual men are capable of possessing, but not every man will possess, okay? So let me go a little bit more in depth with what I mean by that. The same way you can have men who are tall, and the same way you can have men who are short, right? But their height is not something they're going to be able to change over the course of time as they become an adult. They are the height that they are, unless they get surgery, but that gets weird, okay? They are the height that they are. So if that man is tall, he is tall, right? That's the trait that he possesses. If that man is short, he is short. That's the trait that he possesses. You're not going to magically change that. You're not going to wake up one day and the short man is eventually a tall man. You're not going to wake up one day and the tall man is eventually a short man. It just doesn't work like that. Princess treatment is the same thing. It's a trait that men either possess or they do not possess it, okay? Now that we've identified that princess treatment is actually a character trait and not a concept that any man is able to jump into and understand, right? It's a character trait that only certain men possess. We're now going to do the job of giving you a bit of like a scavenger hunt, okay? What I mean by a scavenger hunt is when you go out and you date men, you're now searching for which man is going to be the man that actually possesses that character trait, right? Because it's obviously not going to be everyone. So now on your journey, and in what we're trying to help you do here, we're going to help guide you in the right direction to be able to understand what to look for in the men that you're choosing so that you end up finding that man with that already existing disposition. Because remember, the title of today's lesson is how to receive princess treatment without asking for it. But the only way you're going to be able to receive princess treatment without asking for it is to find a man that understands how to give princess treatment, number one, and also has the desire to give princess treatment that you don't have to beg for it. Are we on the same page? Okay? So in order for you to do that, we have to send you on a scavenger hunt to look for those men with that disposition that will in turn allow you to receive princess treatment without having to beg like you would for a man who doesn't have that character trait in his possession. In order for us to really hit home with the idea of what you're trying to accomplish and what I want you doing on your journey to accomplish that thing, we're going to explain this analogy, okay? We're going to use a house. When you go searching for a house, okay, you have this list of criteria that you desire in your house. So when you're going and your realtor is showing you a bunch of different potential houses, you're going to be viewing these houses under the pretense that I have my existing criteria of what is most important to me in the house that I select. Now, when I go and view these houses, I'm trying to get as close to this criteria as I possibly can in order to say that's the house for me. For example, those of you that said, I like an open kitchen concept, you're not gonna go view a house and then go inside that house, see a closed concept and say, this is the house for me. I know that I need this one, because it doesn't align with what you wanted in a house. If you go to a house and you say, I want my dream house to have a sauna in it, and you go into that dream house and there's no sauna to be found, you're gonna say, this is probably not the house for me. Because your criteria is gonna determine the house that you want and you choose to buy. You're not gonna go to a house that doesn't have these qualities and then say, yeah, I'll buy this house and then I'll change everything about it to be the thing that I want it to be. Do you see where I'm going with this? So the reason that I wanna give you this analogy for the rest of what we're gonna discuss here is because when it relates to princess treatment, we'll put PT here, princess treatment, this is gonna be like the house that you view, the potential house. Now, these character traits that were once concepts or things that you wanted in the house that you want, this is gonna be your princess treatment, we'll say view. When I say view, what I mean by that is, what is your understanding of princess treatment, right? Because each and every one of you, even though you might generally be able to explain the idea of princess treatment and say what princess treatment is on a general sense, right? Each and every one of you, based on your own unique experience in life and your own unique desires in a relationship, and maybe even based on your traumas, will have your own unique things that you want or a way that you understand princess treatment to be in a way that best serves you. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? In fact, understanding that is the key element to everything that we're gonna do here for the rest of the show. Because with that understanding, right, you can now go and shop for a house and actually understand, is this house for me? If you didn't have your list of criteria of what you wanted in a house, you would never be able to decipher when you see one house versus the second house versus the 18th house, which house is actually better for you. You need that criteria. Same thing with princess treatment. In order for you to not just receive princess treatment without asking, but receive princess treatment in the way that you actually want princess treatment, you have to have your criteria so that when you shop for it, you actually know that that is in line with the way that you want to be treated. This is how we're actually going to break down the way we're going to decipher which men are capable of giving princess treatment and also capable of giving princess treatment in the way that you want princess treatment, okay? Because the thing about it is, remember, we're on a scavenger hunt. We're trying to get through all of these men and figure out which ones have that existing disposition and desire to give princess treatment. And then we're also trying to decipher, does your understanding of what princess treatment is it the same as my understanding of that? Remember, we're buying a house, so we need to know what our criteria is. So we're gonna cover these three main concepts in the process of deciphering that information with the pink print, okay? So we're gonna discuss history first. Now, I'm gonna give you a small breakdown of each one of these points, and don't worry, we're gonna go in depth of exactly step by step what I want you to do. So what history is supposed to cover is the things that he's done in the past in his relationship with his exes, at the very least his most recent ex. What I want you to do is I want you to use this information to gather to understand how does he regularly treat the woman in his life. Because how he's most recently treated the woman that was just in his life is gonna be a very close representation of how he plans to treat you in his relationship with you. Next, we will discuss hypotheticals, okay? Hypotheticals are going to consist of questions or statements that you can make where you can paint a picture and say, in this circumstance, how would you go about this situation if you were in a relationship? Now, very important with hypotheticals. Hypotheticals are going to come in the third person, all right? Meaning, when you ask these hypothetical questions, you're not going to present these hypothetical questions as if you're asking them for you. For example, if I go on a date with you and I say, hey, how would you treat me if you were dating me? And like, you know, kind of like how we're on a date right now. If I was your boyfriend, right, and we were dating, how would you go about treating me and taking me on a really nice date? You see how like that's very personal, and it almost feels like I'm hoping you're going to give me an answer that I want to hear, right? It also sets up men to be more inclined to lie because they feel like this question has a lot of weight and pressure on it because it's about you and how I treat you. Whereas in third person, I want you to ask in a nonchalant, in a way where you're basically asking him, it's your choice. I'm not affected or offended with whatever choice you choose. I'm just curious how you go about it. So an example of a third person question in a hypothetical would be something like, hey, if you were in this situation, right, and you were dating someone, how would you choose to go about A, B, and C, right? But you remove yourself out of it. You don't say me, you don't say I, right? You just say you with someone else. Now, questions are going to discuss value. And we're going to go in depth with it, so don't worry. We want to understand what ways and how does he value or not value women, because that's going to determine how interested or disinterested he's going to be in giving princess treatment, okay? So I want you guys to understand what we're trying to accomplish with this type of question and how to kind of expand on it and follow up, okay? So with history, I want you to ask a question like, what was romance like with your ex? And specifically, what was romance like in a non-sexual way? Because the first thing that men are going to be inclined to do or way to answer when they go to answer this question is to answer it in a sexual way. Why? Because their mind goes to sexual when they think of romance. That's just reality, okay? But what I want you to specify is in a non-sexual way, how was romance and what did you and your ex-partner do to have romance in your relationship? The reason this question is so good at getting and gathering the information of the type of princess treatment you might get, or if you're going to get princess treatment, is because, for example, if he has no answer for this, or he's stumped about thinking about how romance showed itself in his previous relationship with his partner, how capable do you think he's going to be of giving you romance in this new relationship when he didn't even understand how to bring romance into his old relationship if it wasn't for the sake of sex? Very important to take note of that. And we're going to talk about how to absorb these things in a non-judgmental way that I actually want you to absorb them. But this is how I want you asking this question, waiting for him to answer honestly, but also not allowing yourself, right, to fall into the trap of trying to get him or convince him that he should have gone about it a different way. Key him into the fact that, let's say he doesn't have a good answer, or an answer where you're just like, oh, you don't really know how to bring romance, how to bring, a spark, how to bring a connection without sex into a relationship. Now, when you note that, I don't want you to cue him into that with your facial expressions, with the fact that you might be disappointed in his answer, with anything. You gotta make sure to stay neutral. This question is gonna make you look kind of like a scholar, but it's okay. If you were in a relationship right now, not with me, just with someone random, okay? Third person perspective, remember. How would you show love through action on a day-to-day basis? This kind of ties into a little bit kind of like the question where we asked about history, except now we're giving him an opportunity to even let go of what transpired in his past relationship and really think to himself, in my perfect scenario where I get to have everything my way, how am I going to treat my woman? Now, what should be happening with a man who understands how to give princess treatment and also understands that princess treatment is important, he should be able to give you some examples of things that he likes to do, right? Because remember, this is about him. How do you like to show love? It's not about what someone else wants. How do you like to show up? That he takes from himself and says, you know what? When I want to treat my woman good, because I like treating my woman good, these are the things that I like to do to treat my woman good. See, the reason that this is really important, remember what I said our goal was at the beginning. Our goal was to find the men who have the disposition and desire to give princess treatment, number one. But then to also, in the process of finding those men, figure out who are the men who have the existing criteria who is similar to yours as it relates to their understanding of what princess treatment should be. So if you came into this date or this conversation with an already existing understanding of what you feel princess treatment should be in your relationship, this will be a great question to ask, because when he answers this, he's going to tell you what he desires to give as it relates to princess treatment in his relationship. If you and him are on the same page about what he desires to give his woman and what you desire to receive, you see how we have a match made in heaven, right? You see how we have a now relationship where instead of you having to beg him to act like this and act like that, his natural innate desire is to treat you how you want to be treated. This is a tricky one. It's tricky because there's going to be a way that you all want to ask it, but I actually want you to avoid asking it this way because I don't want you to trigger him, okay? So I'm going to put this here and you'll see what I mean in a second. This is where some of you might trip up because some people might advise you to ask it a different way, or you might have an inclination to ask it a different way, which is this way. What do you think is the value of having a woman? The reason, we're in 2025, okay? So I actually be in the field. I don't know about these other people who be talking about relationships. I be in the field talking to real people. So I know that sometimes when you go out on a date, certain things that someone could say will trigger your spidey senses, where you'd be like, wait, what are you, is this a trap question? What are you trying to ask me here, okay? Are you trying to get me to say something that's gonna make me look bad? Do I need to prepare myself for this answer? I want the guys that you date to be as off guard as possible so that you can get real, raw, honest answers. And I know value is gonna be a trigger word, okay? Because it's become a buzzword, especially in dating and relationships where I'm a high value man, I'm a high value woman, I'm a high value everything, okay? Everyone's high value. So I don't want you to necessarily say that, but that's what you're trying to extract. I want your vocabulary to just be more colloquial, casual. That way he's less triggered to feel like, oh, I need to prepare myself for a really professional, buttoned up answer, okay? So what do you think is the point of having a woman? What information are you trying to extract here? You want to understand, does he even see value in having a woman, a girlfriend, a wife? I know it sounds kind of weird because you're thinking to yourself, why would this man be on a date with me if he doesn't actually see value in being with a woman? Well, there's a lot of reasons that he could be on a date with you but not see value in a woman. But I have to be honest with you. Some men will date you actively, go on dates with you, but not actually value women or think they're valuable, right? There's a lot of men, I have to be real with you, right? They're listening to things and their belief system is women will drain you financially, physically, spiritually. Women are a waste of time. They're a distraction. They don't serve a purpose, right? That actually is their belief system. They just might not admit that to you, but that's truthfully and honestly what they believe. Now, most of the time when you ask this type of question, if a guy honestly believes that women don't really have that much value or there's not really that much of a point to having a woman in your life, they're not necessarily going to say, I think women are valueless. I think women are just here to drain you financially, physically, like most guys who are sane aren't going to say that because they know it will diminish their chances of sleeping with you drastically. Okay. They're not dumb. But what a lot of men will do if they feel that way, when you ask them this question, is they will be stumped. Okay. Right. I could write this down here. There's really two options, right? One, you get silence, where when you ask this question, and you say, hey, yeah, what do you think is the value in having a woman? They're kind of like, the value in having a woman. Because now they're starting to feel the heat and the pressure that, oh my God, she's gonna be onto me. Because I need to come up with something that sounds good, right? And you're gonna start seeing him like sift for answers. And a lot of times if a guy really doesn't feel this way, but he wants to lie to you, he'll either be silent, he'll be stumped, and when he finally comes up with the answer, it either won't make sense or it'll be very vague. Like, the value in having a woman is you have someone that's there. Okay, they're doing what? They're around and it's great to have company. Okay. So these are the type of things I want you to be observing. You're not going to make a comment about it. You're not going to say anything about it. You're just going to know, okay, if you're giving this type of answer, it most likely means you don't even see real value in having a woman, which directly means he's not going to be giving you princess treatment. Because we remember what we started here doing, right? We're trying to discover the men with the character trait and the disposition and desire to give princess treatment. Men who do not see a value in having a woman or in women in general are not going to be giving princess treatment. That's just a non-starter, okay? So you have to be self-aware and honest with yourself enough to say, if this guy doesn't even see the value in having a woman, there is no chance he's going to be giving me princess treatment. Now, the second type of response you can get, which I hope you get, right, is a detailed type of response where you can clearly see that either that guy has thought about that answer before, right? Or there's something about a woman that he really feels like he is gaining when he's with a woman versus when he's single and he's just, chasing women around, okay? Let me give you an example of a detailed answer that would be a good answer, because I've seen someone ask that in the chat, right? An example of this would be having a woman, like a good woman that you can invest in, eliminates distractions for you as a man. It also helps to build you up as a man because you're able to be with someone that you know cares for you and you also care for. You can be in each other's corner. You can build each other up in terms of your weaknesses. A lot of times, if you find a good woman, she can help to bridge the gap in terms of your weaknesses, right? And her weaknesses, your strengths and her strengths, you can come together and be much more than just what you're capable of doing by yourself, right? That's just a vague example of an answer where it's like, okay, clearly this guy has thought this out and clearly this guy actually sees a value in having a good woman, right? Doesn't have to necessarily mean that, oh, he sees value in being with every woman or every woman that's ever existed, but having a good woman in his life, okay? And trust me, when you've been practicing being observant and really listening, it'll be a lot more clear to you when men actually feel like women have value in their life, in marriage as a girlfriend, versus when men don't really feel that and they just want to extract from a woman. When you are having these conversations with these men, there's a little bit of a trap that is very easy to fall into when you're having these conversations and you're being so good at extracting information. This trap is to show your cards too early, okay? The reason I say don't show your cards is because when you're talking to men and you're trying to decipher, do you even want to give princess treatment? Do you even value women in the first place? Do you think they're valuable? Do you think being with one is valuable? And what is your definition of princess treatment? You don't want to make the mistake of giving him all the answers to the test, and then you test him, he aces it, and now you think to yourself, oh yeah, we're on the same page, when you're not. Some men who are really smart, as you're having these conversations and you're asking these really good questions, will clue into the fact that you're asking questions that are a lot more in-depth and detailed than the average woman, okay? Because you watch the Players Club. When you start asking those questions, some of the intelligent men will start to change their answers and see if they can collect answers from you, knowing that you're probably testing him when you're asking these questions. So they'll start to say things like, well, what about you? How would you treat a man, right? Which is something that you can answer. I don't have a problem with answering that. If he's asking you, how would you treat your man? How would you make him feel special and all that? But then when he asks you, oh, well, how do you want to be treated in your princess treatment relationship, even if he doesn't say princess treatment, in your relationship to feel romantic, to feel good, to feel special? This is exactly what I want you to say, to not show your cards, but to seem like you're answering his question, okay? I want all of you paying very close attention, okay? This is very important to dodge this bullet because it'll come up. When he says, how would you like to be treated? Do not answer him by telling him exactly the way you want princess treatment, exactly the type of romance you expect, exactly the way you want it to happen in your dream amazing scenario. He will take that information, twist it, and he will throw it back at you and make you feel like you guys are aligned. Instead, what you should say is, what I really, really want from my man in terms of romance and treatment is I want him to intentionally treat me how he really feels about me. I want him to be so raw and honest with his emotions and not try to be anything for me, not try to be anyone for me, and not just do things to shut me up or for the sake of it. I want him to genuinely, from the bottom of his heart, give me what he thinks I deserve when he feels like it's prompted upon him to do so, because that's what he wants to do. That is a great way to give an answer that really isn't an answer. Because all you basically said is, I want my man to be himself. I don't need him to be anyone for me. I just want him to be him. Okay? It also sounds very sweet, very powerful, very magical. I don't want my man to do anything except be himself. Okay? But it's great now because what you just did was, rather than show him your cards, you basically hid your cards. You gave him this vague answer that sounded really special and really well thought out, but he doesn't have any way of mirroring you and giving you back information that would help him ace the test. So instead, what you actually did, which is really, really smart, this is like it's just psychology on a different level. What you really did now is you just encouraged him to be even more raw and honest about how he would choose to treat his woman. Okay? And you almost open the floor to making him feel more comfortable with telling you the real, even if the real isn't as magical as, it would sound if you told him what you wanted. For example, when you say this, he might say, oh, you know what? I'm glad you said that. Because for me, I just feel like romance is not something that really has to be focused on in a relationship. I just feel like, sometimes when you like someone, the best thing to do is just sit in silence and not talk, or sit in silence and just chill. I'm a very chill type of person. I don't like those big, large gestures. I don't like, PDA. I don't like doing so much that everyone's seeing and watching. I just like to chill, relax, not do too much, be more nonchalant. Then you can take that information and oh, interesting. That's okay. That's really good. Oh, nice. Good to hear, right? You don't say anything. You don't make a comment about anything. Don't make a face. This is going to not make sense at first, but I'll explain how this works to you. What you want to do after you have gone through the process of asking him those questions and deciphering, remember, is this the house that I want to buy? What is my already existing criteria for the type of house that I'm looking for? And in the search of the type of house that I'm looking for, did I find the house with the character traits that I actually want? AKA, in the process of me searching for princess treatment, did I find a man who even desires to give princess treatment or thinks it's necessary for a relationship? And then number two, is the way he understands princess treatment in the same language that I understand princess treatment. Are we on the same page? Now, once you finish doing that, you go on a couple of dates and things like that. Now you want to be observing. Now you're observing you from a third person while you're living in that state. So what I mean by that is you have you, the observer, okay? And then you have you living in the sense that you are actually going through it. But it's very important to be self-aware and analyze what's going on in your situation, in your relationship with this guy as time is going on. Because remember, when you started off, you asked yourself a question of, hey, is this the house that I want to buy? When I say I want princess treatment and how I want it, did I look for and find a guy who has the same understanding of what princess treatment is supposed to be and how it's supposed to work in a relationship? Cool. Now that we have that same understanding and we're continuing to date, am I actually seeing an alignment between the way he said he wanted to treat his woman in a relationship and how I'm beginning to get treated? For example, if this guy says, I love making big grand gestures for my woman, taking her out on vacations to Bali. She comes back home. There's rose petals on the floor. I love surprise dinners. I love big bouquet of roses. I love doing all these lavish gifts, everything I possibly can for my woman. And let's say you've been dating this guy for like 3 months. And after you finish hearing that, you're starting to notice, all of the stuff he said he would do hypothetically if he was in a relationship with a hypothetical woman, we've been kind of dating for 3 months and I haven't received any of that, right? And I'm not just talking about gifts, but it could be any sort of treatment that he's referred to having a desire to give his woman in a relationship that made you feel like you guys were in alignment there. Now that you're observing, right, you're the observer observing the living you, you're saying to yourself, well, a lot of those things haven't even happened. He talked about it, and when he said it, it sounded amazing, it sounded great, but now that we're actually here, none of that has really happened or transpired. Now you know there's misalignment, and this is where you also have to be very honest with yourself. Maybe when we were having that conversation, he was using that as a chance to get me super excited, super hyped up about the idea of us being together, or knowing that maybe I was searching for some sort of answer and he tried to give me the answer that I wanted. But now that it comes to actually dating me, he's not actually about those things that he said he would be about. In which case, you are not going to beg a man for princess treatment. It is a very slippery slope. Once you start, it's very hard to stop. And I promise you, the moment you have to start, you've already lost, okay? So you need to be observing as time goes on, is there alignment there? If there's not alignment, then you need to start being honest with yourself. This is probably a relationship I should stop investing myself in. Because I know, listen, I help so many of you. I'm like in your head. I know that when a guy can talk a big game, especially when he can say all the trigger words that are so special to you, so amazing to you, it almost feels the same as him actually doing it. When he says, oh, I want to go out on a great vacation and I want to take you out and get you a nice dress and I want us to go to this fancy dinner, you get the feeling in your stomach, right? And the feeling like in your body, right? You get hot in your body and you're like, oh my God, you almost feel like you're there. You almost feel like you're actually doing it, but you're not, okay? And you have to remind yourself as time goes on, how much of what he got me excited about, even as it relates to this princess treatment, is he actually doing, right? Even that, remember when I talked about that question that you should ask earlier about the hypotheticals on a daily basis, what are the things that you could do? It doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be something extravagant, but even ask yourself those things that he talked about on a daily basis that he would do in small ways to give princess treatment or show his woman that she's special or be romantic. Is he even doing those things? Because if he's not, then you're very far, far away from getting that big, large, grand gesture.